Trust is one of the most important concepts for us as leaders to think about and understand today. In a world where trust lags historical levels, it is now more powerful than ever. We're going to talk today about this topic with a true expert on trust, its implications for businesses and individuals. Welcome to the latest episode of the Remarkable Leadership Podcast, where we are helping leaders grow personally and professionally to lead more effectively and make a bigger positive difference for their teams, organizations, and the world. If you're listening to this podcast in the future, you could join us live, and you could do that by finding out where we're at on your favorite social channels by going to Facebook or to our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. Just go to remarkablepodcast.com/Facebook or remarkablepodcast.com/LinkedIn. Today's episode is brought to you by my latest book, Flexible Leadership: Navigate Uncertainty and Lead with Confidence. It's time to realize that styles can get in our way and that following our strengths might not always be the best approach. In a world more complex and uncertain than ever, leaders need a new perspective, a new set of tools to create the great results for their organizations and their teams. That's what Flexible Leadership provides you. Learn more and order your copy today at remarkablepodcast.com/flexible. For those of you live, you've already heard David, you already see him. But for all of you on the podcast, let me introduce to you David Horsager. He's the CEO of Trust Edge Leadership Institute, the inventor of the Enterprise Trust Index, the director of the global study Trust Outlook, and the best-selling author of 4 books, including his latest, which I would show you if my camera was working. It's titled Trust Matters More Than Ever. After decades of research and work with top organizations, leaders, and politicians, he is called by Forbes as the world's leading authority on trust. David's showing you what I would show you otherwise. David, welcome, actually.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks so much, Kevin. Here we go.
So I want to know why it is that trust has become your thing for over 25 years. Why trust?
Well, I think, with due respect and without a lot of ego, but work on 6 continents and starting this work in 1999, I believe actually at the core, it's always a trust issue now. I didn't think that at first, but I started seeing this issue when I was doing this first leadership training at one of the military academies. Is like, that's not a leadership issue. Actually, the reason people follow a leader or not is trust. Well, that's not a sales issue. The reason people buy has something to do with trust. And the only way to speed up, sales is increase trust in a channel. Learning in a classroom only increases when I increase trust in the content of the teacher, the safety of the room. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Biggest Harvard study shows diversity on its own puts or pits people against each other unless you increase trust. Innovation only goes up when people trust each other. Otherwise, they won't share ideas. Marketing messages are only amplified when I trust the message. So once we started dealing with trust as the leading indicator, as the root cause, we were able to solve some massive issues. So that's why it was, first of all, it was just a shift of thinking. Then it was my grad work that kind of proved out how a lack of trust is the biggest expense in a company. And then we started using it. The first company, they said the first little mental health clinic group, 14 mental health clinics, said they dropped attrition by $2 to $4 million in 9 months. We had the U.S. Navy say they dropped suicide rates when 15,000 sailors got trained. We had a Fortune 50 company say it helped them gain 11% market share when they shifted thinking on this framework of how trust is built. We had Fortune 5 companies say they increased engagement scores for the first time in 14 years in one of the toughest business units. We've had people say it tripled their sales. We've had people say it saved their marriage. I can say it changed my life and has changed me in the last 25 or so years. So I believe why is because we stumble upon kind of this core issue when we think about trust. And of course, in my grad work, we noticed, really uncovered this framework of how trust is actually built and how it's not just character, just these 8 components. When trust is built, that changes everything. And that can solve the biggest issues we see personally and professionally.
Good, bad, right or wrong, everyone. Kevin's camera's working again. For those of you on the podcast, you really don't care. But for the rest of you here. And so if nothing else, David and I had a short conversation on the phone earlier today. And if nothing else, David, this will make it easier for you to trust me as we have this conversation, I suppose, since you can see me. One of the things that I wanted to go into that maybe no other guest or no other podcast has ever asked you about. We have something in common. We both grew up on a farm in the Midwest, not in the same state, but in the Midwest. And so I'm curious, you talked about how you sort of moved into the trust area starting in graduate school, but looking back now, going all the way back. What from your kidhood, what connections do you see now around trust and around the work that you do all the way back to your growing up?
I'll tell a story very quickly. And I'll tell you, I think when people say, where did you trust stuff? Was it the grad work? Was it this? Was it that? Was it first bestseller? Was it the measurement tools you've come up with? It actually does go back to the farm. And I think of a time I was 10 or 11 years old, mom and dad. I lived 8 miles from the nearest town of 500 people. So way out in the middle of nowhere. So no other staff on the farm. It wasn't like farm it was growing season. It wasn't planting or harvest. So it was just dad, mom, and myself. And 5 in the morning, we had breakfast. We usually got up pretty early on the farm. The sun comes up early in northern Minnesota. 5:30 in the morning, we're out the door. I jump in the blue Chevy pickup truck with my dad. Mom stays in the house. Quarter-mile dirt driveway. Can't see another farm from our farm in those days. We go from field to field and irrigator to irrigator. We're in the far reaches of the farm. It's public dirt roads. We're checking the irrigation, checking the beans, checking the corn, and there's some junk in the middle of the dirt road. And my dad hates litter. He doesn't say much, but I knew what he was thinking when he swerved that pickup truck over in such a way that my door was immediately above the litter. I opened the door, 10 or 11 years old. I reached down and I picked up the Playboy magazine. Now, I am not here to tell you what's right and wrong. I used to be an ethics professor. I will tell you this. If you act on what you say you don't believe, you'll lose trust in less than a second. I knew what my dad believed about this kind of thing. I'd seen and heard him mentor our rough, tough hired guys, my older brothers. I dropped that magazine to the floor of the pickup truck. I knew he did not think it was the right way to look at women or treat women. I knew what he thought, but today I'd see it. I dropped the floor of the pickup truck. We kept going from field to field and irrigator to irrigator. Pretty soon it's about mid-morning on the farm. What is that? 7:30? We came up the quarter-mile driveway, went up by the house. He dropped me off at the house. I went to the house to play or help mom or whatever. And he drove another 100 yards out to the shop. He started working on a tractor, just working on stuff. Remember, can't see anyone else from ours. There's no one else around, no other farms around. Mom, I don't know if I'm helping her or what, but there's no windows in the backside of the house. No way to see what dad was doing. The phone rang. You can remember when we had one phone on a farm with a cord attached, right?
I even remember party lines.
Oh, yes. I remember party lines. Absolutely. So dad, mom said, hey, took a message, and usually nothing was so urgent then, that random mid-morning time. But she said, David, go give this to your dad. So instead of putting on his lunch spot, she gave me the message, and I ran out of the attached garage. And like I said, there's no windows in the back of the house. Dad's 100 yards away. No way he would think I was watching or anything else. But for some reason that day, I paused inside the garage and peered through the only little window that looked out at the backside of the farm. And what I saw would change my life forever. Because without him knowing it, I watched him pull himself out from under the tractor he was working on. Through that little window, I watched him walk around the other side of the combine between two trees up to the backside of the blue Chevy pickup truck. I watched him reach under the seat, pick up that Playboy magazine, and then I watched. I watched him keep his arm outstretched and without a glance walk 30 paces to the shop furnace where I watched him throw it into the fire. Now, do I trust my daddy? Absolutely, because he does what he says he'll do even when no one's looking for. That's where he create the habits for when someone just like me might be. So when I think of the farm, I think probably this trust work started. You can learn from terrible leadership. You can learn from great leadership. I had the opportunity to learn from great leadership, and I saw trust firsthand and why people wanted to work for my dad and our farm. And that probably was one of the seeds that actually led to this research.
So you've been doing this, the trust index, for a long time. And so the new book is called Trust Matters Now, or Matters More Than Ever. And so I think we should talk for a second. Yeah, I've got it too.
Yeah.
I'll hold it up here, everybody. Trust matters more than ever. So why do you say now more than ever? Talk to us a little bit about what your research is saying, which I think will confirm what we already realize about the trends around trust. Talk about that for a little bit.
Well, there's a truth about it and there's a no truth about it. Number one, people say, oh, your trust stuff, it's so timely. It's so timely. And the truth is, it also is timeless. it also always was the most important thing. So in some ways it matters more than ever. In some ways it always mattered the most. And I would say the research proves it. So the reasons it matters more than ever, people kept saying to me, oh yeah, it matters more than ever. Well, the truth is it always mattered. But the reason it matters more than ever is because there's public loss more than ever. You can impact the world negatively more than ever. We saw it with the CEO, the loss of trust of a bank in California caused ripple effects of negative in Europe. So it matters more than ever because you affect more people. It matters more than ever because a find out of moral failure can affect not just you, but the whole company and others across the ocean. So there's a lot of reasons it matters more than ever. But the biggest of the 10 reasons in the book is that it just can affect so many more people negatively than ever before. But trust has always mattered, and yet it matters more than ever because of what it means. It's also more unique in some spaces than ever, as you know. So we can get into the downfall of trust, if you want, or the history of the 2-minute history of trust, if you'd like.
Well, one of the things that I was struck by early in the book. You did talk about these 10 reasons, and you said something. So it kind of on the surface feels different or opposite of what you just said, or no, it's connected to what you just said, and that is you said, hey, trust has always been around, maybe more important than ever. But you make the comment that says that that society is more trust conscious than ever. What do you mean by that? Because if it's dropping, which you would say, and I think all of us would realize, why are we now more trust conscious?
Well, we're more trust conscious in a different way, maybe than that too, and that is that basically when I started my research, almost no one was talking about trust. I'm telling you, no, there's like, they're talking about leadership, they're talking about this, they're talking about that. I had to prove and show how a lack of trust is their biggest expense. Trust is not a soft skill. Now, in the last 5 years, everybody's talking about trust with and without research. If you look at the books, the research, the people, like you got people saying all kinds of things. Trust is transparency. No, it's, I mean, we know the data shows you can build transparency with trust. You can build trust with transparency, but it's not the same thing. Some kids are so transparent on social media. I don't trust them, right? So confidentiality is also trusted. So it's become in the people talk about it, they see it, they know what was always there, but they're talking about it more than ever. They're feeling it. They're saying, you look at the number of words, stories on trust, as trust is the core word, or you look at the number of books where trust is the core word, or you look at what people are talking about, or even company names. The company names, everybody saw that it's a value. So whether they really are core to it or not, it's like trust is either in the value or the name of the company, or what we do is we're the most trusted. Or nobody was saying that 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's right. One of the other things that you talk about is that trust is a leading indicator. So I'm curious, of what? Why, and of what?
Okay, so trust is the leading. You have lagging indicators, but trust is the leading indicator of sales, of leadership influence, of innovation, of almost any output you want to see. Of low trust is a leading indicator of attrition. High trust, low trust is a leading indicator of retention. Or trust is a leading indicator of retention. So people will say, for instance, our enterprise trust index, not the trust outlook. That's the primary research we do every year. But then we have these 6 ways we measure trust in organizations: enterprise trust index, or team assessment, or some of these assessments, self-assessment, and those kind of things. And we agree on some things there because we think not just strengths or not, anyway. So people switch to ours from Gallup and some others because they noticed that you have to measure trust and engagement. In other words, you don't get engagement with engagement. You have to increase trust. That leads to more engagement. If you increase trust in a leader, they get more positive influence. If you increase trust in a sales channel, just think about it simply. If I could just shake hands instead of do all the paperwork, we could just do it on trust. It would be quicker. The only way to speed up a sale is increase trust in the channel. I mean, once they see trust is the leading indicator of all the good things. If they start shift thinking to have it be a trust issue, they actually start to solve the issue they wanted, instead of just saying, whatever. It's like I joke about communication a lot. Like, oh, David, you love C words, because people will see my framework is 8 C words. And I'll say, and you love C. So isn't it ever a communication issue? No. Never. I was communication undergrad. Communication in the way you define it, I know what you mean, but communication's happening all the time. It's the type. You have to go one more level down. So, for instance, clear is trusted, unclear communication isn't. High character is trusted, dishonest communication is not. Competent communication is trusted, incompetent communication is not. Like, you go down the list of the pillars of trust and you get what you actually wanted, and those are leading indicators of the output you wanted.
You were talking about the shaking hands thing, and that would be a lot faster. Both you and I have that experience with our dads too. The handshake was all it took. There's no
Yeah.
need for a signed document. There's no need for a contract. That was all we needed.
Yeah. If you could do that, and so I'm not saying we should trust everyone, but just,
I know you're not. I know that. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. Without all the research on the first half, think, if I put a lock on something, there's only one reason I would lock my bicycle, my mailbox, or my home. The only one reason I'd put a lock on is because I don't trust. So what's that lack of trust costing? One, money. I got to buy the lock. Two, time. Now I got to open it every time I go. What if it's a combination lock? Drive me crazy, right? But it's the same with you. Like, you got kids you trust. They're going out with friends you trust. Oh, great. They're going out with the friends you don't trust. Biggest stress you have as a parent. You're a leader on a team. You got someone you trust. They got your back. You got someone on your team you don't trust. Biggest stress you have at work.
For sure. So you mentioned 8 pillars.
Yep.
You mentioned a couple of them quickly. So why don't we don't have time, obviously, to dive into all of them deeply. Yep. This new book really talks about the pillars and then talks about tools. So I kind of want to get there, but just give everybody the quick lay of the land. I've got them all. I can lay them out here as you talk about them very quickly.
Well, I'll just go through them quickly, but the tools are the key. The book is full of tools you can use tomorrow morning. 40 tools you can use. They're quick, easy, usable tools. But the pillars, and they're not a trite list of C's, some pastoral list. They each represent a very important research funnel. But how is trust built globally? Whether it's pro sports teams, businesses, presidents of corruption issues in East Africa, whatever we do, we come back to these 8 that we contextualize for the space. So number 1, clarity. People trust the clear, they mistrust or distrust the ambiguous or the overly complex. Clarity. Number 2, compassion. We trust those that care beyond themselves. If I don't feel, intent was a big word that came out of this research funnel. You got to have some intent beyond yourself. Number compassion, character. We trust those. Number 3 is character. We trust those that do what's right over what's easy. We thought this would be important. We knew it would be important, but it's not everything, because I would trust Kevin to take my kids to the ball game, but not give me a root canal. Because of competency. Number 4.
Good call. Good call, by the way.
You've got to be fresh and relevant. If you're leading the same way you were 20 years ago, I don't trust you. If you're teaching the way you were 5 years ago, I don't trust you. You got to be competent, fresh, relevant, capable. Next pillar is commitment. We trust those that stay committed in the face of adversity. This is where you'll find the framework for how to rebuild trust, by the way, once you've lost it, the 10-step process, but it really comes down to one thing. The next pillar is connection. The willingness and ability to connect and collaborate with others. In the book, by the way, is the counterforce wheel. You'll see counterforces to trust in your organization. And connection, one of the top counterforces would be siloing. In fact, some companies incentivize siloing. Use that budget. If you don't use that budget, you don't get any next year. Don't think about everybody else. The next pillar, number 7, is contribution. And the number 1 word that came out of this funnel was results. We trust those that contribute results. You can't just have compassion and character. You got to actually deliver results. I need yield on this corn. I need sales things to get sold. I need leadership to happen. I need the food to arrive at my table. You could be the sweetest restaurant I've ever been to, but I never get the food. That's a problem, right? So next pillar and the final pillar, the 8th pillar, is the biggest, most important pillar. It is consistency. Sameness is trusted. If you're late consistently, I will absolutely trust you to be late, right? The only way to build a reputation as a person is consistency. The only way to build a brand as a company is consistency. So that's the 8. We come back to these 8, and this is revalidated by an outside university again a couple of years ago. That comes down to these 8. So if you have other words in your mind, you're thinking, well, what about empathy? That comes under compassion. Everything comes under these 8 as far as how trust is built into a brand, a government, an organization, or a marriage or human.
When you think about this from an organizational level, this is the Remarkable Leadership Podcast, David, I'm curious, as you work with clients, which of these 8 do you, if there's a trend, which of them do you find the biggest gaps?
Well,
organizationally?
yeah, they can all, there's two ways to decide, right? Number one, you decide by taking an assessment. But if you don't do that or don't ever want to use us for that, that's no problem. Then start with clarity. Why? Because every clarity is so difficult for people. You can do something about clarity and see results in 2 weeks. Character, we got a longer haul. Commitment, we got a longer haul. Clarity, and everybody struggles with it. Everybody everywhere struggles with some part of clarity. So you can see in the book there are 9 tools. I mean, I could give a couple really quickly, but there are clarity is what I would start with, because think about this. Clarity, if we're crystal clear about our values, then the character pillar gets stronger. If we're crystal clear about expectations, which most people aren't, consistency pillar gets stronger. If we're crystal clear about our vision or where we're headed next, commitment pillar gets stronger. So you start with clarity, you will do something that helps other things. And of course, unless you do an assessment, like, oh, we actually need to deal on this first, that's fine. But clarity, they all affect each other.
Yeah, they are certainly interconnected for sure. So since you mentioned tools, what's a tool
Sure.
in that clarity area that you'd like to talk about
Yeah, I'll
briefly?
give you 1 or 2 here really quickly, because I think it makes sense to stay on something we can do something about. So number one, if you have a message, you're a leader and you have a message and you want it to matter today, it's got to be MRA. You have values, you have a mission, it's got to be MRA. You got to make sure it's memorable, repeatable, and actionable. And many people, even in their values, they say they don't give something that's actionable. It's like, oh, it's integrity. Yeah, if you don't have that, you go to jail. What's that look like here? I mean, people could say Hitler had integrity. He did the same thing every day. Like, what does that look like? Is it memorable, repeatable, and actionable? That's one of them. Another really good one for leaders with a message for clarity is to ask the relevancy questions. Whenever you're giving a message, you're giving the message at the end of the meeting, you're giving a pivot on priorities. To ask this in your head, you're answering this. So what this means to us is that many people don't answer. They gave all this message and they didn't make it relevant by saying in your heart, even if you don't say this phrase out loud, say, make sure you're answering what this means to us is, or what this means now is. Or you can put it together and say, so what this means to now is, so, oh, we just had a pandemic. We all have to stay inside. What that means to us right now is we're going to do this and we're going to put money here. We're changing. We have a huge opportunity because of tariffs. What this means to us right now, is, and you just took that and you made it relevant to them. Those are 2 quick ideas. I'll give you another one if we have time for it under clarity, or we can jump.
No, I have one other
Yep.
tool that I really liked, and because it's so important, I think, to people come here to consume some content
Yep.
and to listen and all those sorts of things. And I'm really big on taking action. And so one of the and obviously MRA does that. And actually both of those you just talked about help us get there. I was struck by the one excuse me, called difference making actions. Can you
Okay.
talk about that real quickly?
Well, there's so many people that get overwhelmed. They got 1,000-word to-do list and they weren't getting things done. And I wasn't getting the most important things done. And so I said, so we shifted it down and say, okay, every day, everybody on a sticky note like this. We actually have our own made like this. I won't show you mine today. I'll show you the blanks.
Okay.
Difference making actions. Everybody, every day, on purpose, not on a technical form that has interrupters, but a sticky note. We put down the top 3 to 5 most important things we could do today that would move our key priorities and mission forward. Each person in the whole company that I'm looking at through that glass right now, like everybody brings to the stand-up meeting in the morning, the 10-minute stand-up meeting, they bring their DMAs, difference-making actions. Difference-making actions are the most important thing you could do today to move the organization forward in your role. So many people they avoid the most important thing. Like for a salesperson, it's that call. And they say, I'm going to get to it. And then I have lunch and then I might get to it. Oh, it's Friday. They're probably golfing. And they never do that most important thing. And that most important thing, by the way, isn't some monumental 5-hour project. It's usually one call, some simple thing. And to be a DMA, we make everybody have a number attached. So it's got to be, I can't say I'm a salesperson, I'm going to make more calls. I can say I'm going to make 3 calls. I can say I'm going to clean my office. That's overwhelming. You haven't done that for 6 months. I'm going to clean for 20 minutes. I'm going to clean 3 drawers. I'm going to clean. It's got to have a number attached. So it has to come under the most important thing. You're thinking, what is the most important thing I could do in my role to move this? What are the most important things? Most important. And there's got to be a number attached. That's the most important part of DMAs. And frankly, it's really, if I get through, we want to get through these by 11 o'clock in the morning. So they're not something we're doing all day. We have other interrupters happening and everything else. But usually there are 5 to 10 minute things that people avoid that would actually be the most important thing people would do. A CEO gets there and says, I think I'll just read the news for a while. Is that the most important? Do these first.
Love it. So David, I have a couple of other things. I'm going to shift the focus here a little bit before we finish. I know that you're passionate about your work. It's clear in this conversation that you are, and in the way that you've made a difference in the world through it. I'm curious, outside of work, what do you do for fun?
Well, kids drive my life a little bit there. I've got 4 of them, but they're getting older now, 16, 18, 20, 22.
Yeah, that driver is going away a little bit.
Yeah, it is going away a little bit. I love my wife. I love doing stuff with her. We have we're on a little hobby farm still, so we have rescue horses, and we have horses at the farm. We have someone else manage that largely now because of my travel and everything. We on a little lake too, so we get out on the water and love to paddleboard and stuff like that. But I love to fly fish. So I don't get to do that enough, but I really love that, and I love doing things with my kids. And those are fun parts of it. I love travel too, as much as I fly 200 flights a year, but I like to do it some for places I would choose.
I get that for sure. So I'm curious. The one thing I usually tell people I'm going to ask, and I didn't get the chance to do this with you, but I'm confident you have an answer. What are you reading these days, David?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of my favorites right now. You know, funny enough, I read 3 books. I don't do this every week, so this is not an ego thing. I read 3 books just last week. So you're asking, I want to get this one right. What's the what crisis was it? The Comfort Crisis. I just read. That was that's fascinating. I also read The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. By John Mark Comer, Ruthless and Elimination of Hurry. That's a little bit on the faith-based side, but the Comfort Crisis is another one, and it's the world we're in, and you have to push away from just being comfortable all the time. Really fascinating research. What was the 3rd book I just read? There's another one I just finished recently. I have another recommendation because I was just looking at it and going over it with my team the other day that I think this audience would like, and that's Excellence Wins by Horst Schulze. Of Ritz-Carlton fame.
Yep. We will have all those, as always, everybody, in the show notes, as well as links to David's new book, Trust Matters More Than Ever. David, where do you want to point people? Where do they find you, connect with you? Where do you want to point them?
Well, if you can spell my name, davidhorsager.com gets you there, www.davidhorsager.com. But that's spelled wrong, though. Don't use that one.
Oh, because I got the A and the S backwards.
Yeah. The other way would be Trust Edge.
Way better to just look at it. It's right now if you're watching. And of course,
TrustEdge.com is where you go to the institute, the research, everything available. TrustEdge.com will get you everywhere you need to go.
All right. I got that one spelled right.
You do.
And of course, we'll have all of those links, as always, in the show notes. Before I say goodbye to David and we say goodbye for the day, a question for all of you. It's the same question I ask you every week. If nothing else, I'm consistent. And the question is, now what? What action will you take as a result of spending the last 30 or so minutes with us? What insight did you get? Great. What action will you take? What will you do with what you got? That's one of the reasons I'm so excited to have David on, because of these proven tools. We shared 3 with you of the 40 from the book, but there was many things that you may have gotten that said, hey, this is something I could act on today or soon. And that's what I hope that you will do, because if you do that, this will have been far more valuable for you. David, thanks so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you.
So much. Appreciate it, Kevin.
And everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you invite someone else to listen in or watch if you're watching this. And if you are watching, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any future episodes, because we're here every week. And I hope you're back with me again next week for another episode of the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. Thanks, everybody.